Hello there, good afternoon or good morning wherever you are, and welcome to today's telecoms.com intelligence webinar brought to you in association with Adaptive Mobile. My name is Tim Skinner and I'm the content manager for telecoms.com intelligence. So, what do we have on the agenda today? Today's webinar will be examining the state of SS7 security in today's market. Carl McDade from Adaptive Mobile will be unveiling some previously unseen intelligence on real-world SS7 attacks which are being observed in the industry today. He'll be looking at the threats which are attacking the mobile operator's network, as well as the security and financial impacts to your business and its subscribers, as well as how to address and prevent said exploitations and how to protect customer data. Adaptive Mobile is a leader in mobile network security, combining advanced threat detection and actionable insights with a network protection platform to protect more than 1 billion subscribers worldwide from various threats such as privacy breach and financial exploitation. Carl is the head of threat intelligence for Adaptive Mobile, where he leads the team that provides network operators with intelligence on the current and emerging threats to their networks. He has 15 years of experience in telecoms, messaging and security, during which time he's featured on a number of major news networks giving his opinion. So you're certainly in good hands today. At the end of today's session, there will be an opportunity for Q&A with Carl and Adaptive Mobile. So if you've got any questions that come to mind during the presentation, just use the dialog box that you can see on the side of this page. For the time being, though, I'm going to give just a little bit of context before handing over for today's session with Carl. For those unfamiliar with SS7, it is the primary signaling protocol for successfully directing and delivering voice traffic, SMS services and data between operators. And it's been around for about 40 years, so since the dawn of modern telecoms as we know it. In the telecoms.com Intelligence Annual Industry Survey 2015, we ran a dedicated section on the importance of information security within the telecoms network. We gained more than 2,000 responses to the survey, of which more than 50% came from operators from around the world. One of the questions that we ran, as you can see here, asked respondents to identify how much of a priority a variety of security concerns were. The three most commonly identified and agreed upon areas of security all relate in one way or another to SS7 security, those being customer data and personal information, network infrastructure security, and the protection of various critical systems. It might not necessarily come as a major surprise to see the first two inextricably linked, because with the successful security of the network comes the successful security of customer data and personal information. The overarching threat facing operators can be taken to its inevitable conclusion. If communications are intercepted, spied on, manipulated or whatever, there will of course end up being negative publicity from the media and of course an effect on the brand image of said operator. But that's from an industry perspective. On a user level, there are trust and customer satisfaction issues which will inevitably arise, becoming a threat to revenue or, in the worst case scenario, consumer churn. Additional research from telecoms.com intelligence recently revealed that 70% of operators believe churn is most heavily attributed to networking conditions, such as quality, reliability and, most importantly, the security of data. Therefore, it stands to reason that a failure to appropriately protect the SS7 network from intrusion has the potential to significantly impact directly on operator businesses and revenues generated from subscribers. So it's plain to see why operators need to secure their SS7 systems, and today's speaker, Carl McDade from Adaptive Mobile, will give some use case scenarios for SS7 security and what operators can do to protect themselves today. But that's enough from me for the time being. Carl, it's over to you.
Hi everybody and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you very much, Tim, for that introduction. So to start off and give an introduction, my name is Carl McDade and I'm head of the Threat Intelligence Unit within Adaptive Mobile. And what I'm here to speak to you today is the results of our investigation and research on the SS7 network and security threats which may be arising within that network. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about what we've actually seen in research and working with our customers around the world and what operators can actually do to try to prevent themselves from being subject to these different types of attacks and threats that we've seen. So to set the scene, what we're going to discuss today is several different areas. First, I'm going to give a quick overview of Adaptive Mobile and what we do, and then moving quickly on, we'll talk about the different types of attacks that are possible on the SS7 network. So we're going to talk about some of the origin of these and why these different types of attacks can actually occur. Next, we're going to give some examples of some types of attacks that we've seen. We're going to try to give context here and to give some illustration of the relative scale of these types of attacks and give some specific examples of those. Then moving on, we'll try to quantify somewhat the business impact of these attacks and how they could actually affect your network. And then finally, at the end, we'll discuss how to protect and restore trust to your network. So in this section, we'll actually talk about different ways that operators can actually secure themselves from any types of attacks which may occur over the SS7 network. As an introduction, the Threat Intelligence Unit is the research and services wing of Adaptive Mobile, the world's leader in mobile network security. Every day we analyze and filter for threats in real time, literally billions of mobile events within mobile operators' core networks worldwide. These events include text messages, mobile IP browsing, and SS7 transactions. This gives us a unique global insight and intelligence that we can apply to help discover new threats and to quantify existing ones that others may not be aware of. Our mobile security focus today is on the SS7 network, but before we can delve into detail into what type of attacks we are seeing worldwide, we need to talk about the current situation and the security model within the SS7 network. The current situation for mobile operators is that they have come to a situation where more and more parties are connecting to the SS7 network, while at the same time knowledge of vulnerabilities and what is possible in the SS7 network is also increasing. In the wrong hands, the misuse of the SS7 network can lead to subscribers being tracked, phone calls being intercepted, and revenues being put under threat. As well as this, wide-scale disillusionment and concern over privacy can lead to questions from subscribers and regulators about protections in the SS7 network, and at the same time lead to potentially subscribers and businesses moving away from using GSM operator networks to other forms of communication. As many of you are aware, the SS7 network was designed at a time when trusted access was assumed. What this means is that the only people who were assumed to have access to the SS7 network are those who should have access to it. This was a key part of its design assumptions and a key part of its security assumptions. What that also means, however, is that once you have access at the SS7 network, particularly at the SCCP level, you could then potentially address and send packets to any node addressable over the SS7 network. Another part of this design philosophy is that any packets that were received by a receiving node would not typically validate these packets and where they were actually received from. The end result is that this allows packets to be sent around the world from any particular point, and if they were received, to be actually acted on. This means that if a packet had been potentially have some abnormalities or abnormal contents within it, it would not actually have been interrogated in detail and would not actually have been filtered to any great extent. Using these different types of techniques, one could conceivably access information which one was not permitted to do so, and could also interrogate networks from which it has no roaming agreements with. Taking to further extremes, an attacking network could potentially request commands and request operations against subscribers which is not part of its own network, and request details to which it should not be doing so. One key question that arises is how exactly attackers get access to SS7. Well, while we can't give definitive 100% reasons and methods that they use, we can extrapolate the three main different types of users and misusers of the SS7 network, and using that we can then work backwards to figure out how they actually got access in the first place. As discussed, we believe there are three main different types of groups who are using and misusing the SS7 network. The first group will be individuals and criminals who are using the SS7 network for their own purposes. These could be people who have obtained access to the SS7 network either through the internet in various forms or indeed have backdoor access to networks. The second group will be government agencies and large corporations. These would be typically large companies primarily interested in location tracking who would sell different types of equipment to allow this type of access and tracking to occur. The final group would be primarily nation states and countries. These would be particularly agencies within different countries who would also be primarily interested in location tracking, but as well as that, also call interception. And they would use these techniques via the SS7 network to track and intercept phone calls of peoples of interest. Going into detail in the first of these groups, we can now talk about individuals or criminals who may be trying to misuse the SS7 network. Clearly a black market exists for these expertise and services. Below you can see two examples of the information that's being traded on websites on the internet. The first example is a person who is looking for assistance to actually connect to mobile networks. And the second example to the right is advertisements which have been placed out on the internet looking for access to the SS7 network. You can clearly see here that there is a thriving market in this area and indeed price points. This particular person is quoting a price of $150 per location lookup, which if you add up the number of requests that they wish to do a month, adds up to thousands of dollars a month. Clearly you can see that there is a demand for these types of services, and when there's a demand, there is usually a supply. Here we can see more examples of demand for SS7 access. The first two examples on the top are advertisements looking for location lookup services. The bottom one is quite interesting in that here the people who are looking for this service are specifically specifying that they wish to look up German mobile phone users. Again, this would be unwanted per the subscribers who are having their location tracked, and arguably illegal in those countries if they didn't give their consent to having their location tracked. But once again, this shows the demand for these services is out there, and like I said previously, where there is demand, there is normally supply. These types of advertisements would not normally be advertised unless there have been previous examples or history of these advertisements being answered to successfully in the past. The second category of misusers of the SS7 network is corporations. There exists currently an industry of specialist providers who provide SS7 access on demand. These companies sell different types of software and equipment which allows the users to track subscribers to country and to cell level, as well as doing other features such as disabling call receiving and to set things like geofencing. Basically that a user will be informed when a subscriber who's being tracked moved out of certain areas. We know from information that's being leaked, for example from the hacking team archives, that it's possible to gain access to the SS7 network from between $14,000 to $16,000 per month. This shows that there is an industry and exchange of intelligence within these surveillance companies and between each other. And it also means that these different types of companies are engaged in the practice of selling these different types of techniques and software to each other. Also from the hacking team archives, we can see brochures and illustrations of the capability and techniques of these different platforms. For example, this system called the Geomatrix system, as well as allowing subscribers to be tracked, also allows a user of the platform, be it government or corporation, to disconnect whatever target they want from the mobile network until they perform an outgoing call. This means that a person could have his data connectivity and his phone connections disabled until they actually make a phone call until that person makes a phone call. This shows that the providers of these platforms are going beyond simple location tracking. They are moving into capabilities and functionality such as controlling subscribers and influencing what type of communications they receive from the outside world. The third and final category of misusers of the SS7 network are countries and other actors. We will go into more detail on particular attack purported to be from a nation state later on during this webinar, but basically countries will be interested in gaining access to the SS7 network to do types of activities such as surveillance and call interception. Their capabilities will vary depending on how sophisticated they are. They may develop their own systems or indeed purchase it from corporations. As well as this, there also exists a whole different segment of users of the SS7 network which may not be desirable. For example, many mobile operators in the course of our research have discovered that they are receiving transactions and traffic from other operators which turns out to be relatively benign. But at the same time, they also turn out to be a subsegment of this traffic turns out to be potential fraud from other mobile operators. We have seen things like the reselling of subscriber information and avoidance of existing security deployments such as SMS firewalls being uncovered through SS7 investigation and analysis. In summary, while there may be many different misuses of the SS7 network, and not all are malicious and possibly not all are benign as well, what it comes down to at the end is determining ways to actually detect and then to actually block this activity, allowing the mobile operator to make decisions to determine which should be permitted and which is not. Before we can go into discussions on what type of traffic to allow and what type of traffic to prohibit, it is necessary for us to talk about the scale and extent of SS7 misuse. So during the course of this research, we have worked with carrier operators around the world to investigate and see if they are experiencing SS7 traffic of concern or malicious SS7 traffic on their network. What we want to do today is talk about the different percentages and types of scale that they are seeing, as well as go into slightly more detail on the specific of attacks that they may be experiencing. One key thing that we've taken from all of our experiences and all of our analysis is that every mobile operator we have worked with to date has experienced some form or some type or some scale of suspicious or malicious SS7 activity, without exception. This, along with the different types of attacks that we've witnessed and analysed, gives us reason to believe that misuse of the SS7 network is occurring around the world. To determine the scale of misuse of SS7 networks, we took a sample operator from each of the continents and analysed their traffic. The resultant percentages above here show the relative percentage of total SS7 traffic which exhibited highly suspicious or malicious indicators. These percentages exclude traffic which was addressing inbound roamers, which would have actually caused the percentages to be even higher. Now, it's important to note that we cannot say for certain that not all of these percentages of traffic is indeed truly malicious, but that it exhibits highly suspicious behavior. You can clearly see a variation in the percentage between these different operators. Some of this is due to regional variances. Some of it may be due to some operators having more interconnections than others. But in general, the key thing to take away from this particular slide is that every operator is experiencing some form of unusual, suspicious or malicious SS7 activity around the world.
The first example of an attack over SS7 is call interception. In 2014, the Ukrainian regulator published a little-known report on an investigation into network activity on Ukrainian network. Their investigation showed how interception first occurred via the network MTS Ukraine receiving an SRISM and returning back a node location of the subscriber. Once this location was received, the attacking network sent in a further command called PSI, which then retrieved the cell ID of that individual subscriber, as well as confirming that they were indeed present. The actual call interception occurred when they sent in another packet called insert subscriber data, which basically reprogrammed the control node for that subscriber. This meant when that subscriber tried to make a phone call, the node would actually interrogate the control node over what to do, and it would return back a call forwarding command. In effect, when the subscriber connected to node 1 tried to make a phone call, the call was rerouted to a designated receiver in a different geographic location, in this case a location of a phone in St. Petersburg in Russia. At which point then, the call would be potentially forwarded on to its original recipient, and a man-in-the-middle attack would then occur.
The next example of interest is a tracking platform which we discovered during our research in multiple operators around the world. This tracking platform, which we've monitored, exhibits some very interesting and unusual characteristics. We have detected it tracking over several dozen subscribers around the world, and over a 2-day period its tracking of these subscribers varied massively. Some subscribers in certain countries, it would track several hundred times a day, whereas other subscribers, it would attempt to track only once or twice a day. We believe that the different level of attention and application of these tracking attempts were due to different types of models in place. Sometimes these models will be geofencing, as I discussed earlier, and others they will be simply status reports. We detected this platform sending to multiple countries around the world, to every continent, showing that the interest in subscribers for the users of this platform was worldwide. Another example of SS7 misuse which we've come across is fraud. Not all misuses of the SS7 network lead directly to location tracking or call interception. In this particular case, through analysis of an operator's network in the Americas, we came across and detected fraud attempts being made against this operator, which could potentially lead to millions of dollars in losses. This shows the benefits and reasons for an operator to engage in comprehensive SS7 analysis of their international traffic to determine not only are they exhibiting security threats, but also if they're exhibiting attacks against their revenue. These examples and this research shows us that this SS7 threat is real and sophisticated. As a result, we need to look at ways and to see how this will affect operators and people, and what damage, be it reputational and technical, will it have on operators. The impact due to threats over the SS7 network can be enormous. After the incidents of call interception location tracking in Ukraine, regulators there debated whether to revoke the license to the operators that were affected until they placed in protections which would guarantee that subscribers would no longer be tracked and have their calls intercepted in this manner. This shows the very serious nature to which regulators in many countries will take this position. As well as this, customers are also going to be highly motivated to change the way that they communicate and how they use their mobile devices if they perceive that their device is being monitored without their consent. Already there is an industry engaged in setting up the use of secure or encrypted mobile phones and applications, and if the perception of insecurity is allowed to continue, then this trend will increase even more. Already there may be calls for subscribers to move away from using GSM services for two-factor authentication or to move to something else. As well as this, there's large-scale threats to mobile operators due to fraud losses. Not only due to fraud that they are aware of, but there may be different types of fraud which they're previously unaware of, and other types of protections which they may have in place, such for example for SMS, may now be bypassed if attackers have access to a wider reach of SS7 capabilities and techniques. All in all, the overall impact on operators through misuse of the SS7 network can be enormous and needs to be addressed. However, before operators can go placing in protection into their network, they need to apply intelligence in actually determining what transactions they want to prevent and stop and what transactions they want to allow. For example, during the course of research, have also analysed mobile operators' traffic to determine are inbound subscribers and inbound roamers actually being affected. The theory here is that you protect not only your own subscribers, but also that you protect subscribers who have roamed into your network, as you in turn may wish your subscribers to be protected when they roam into other networks. However, a situation that arises with this is that when you actually do this application of rules and logic, you actually start identifying many more types of traffic which may seem to be suspicious or unwanted. The reason that this occurs is that in many countries around the world that there are different types of sharing arrangements, and especially in areas like the Caribbean, and as well as this there are also going to be signaling hubs in different parts of the world. What is needed at this point is the application of intelligence to determine what is indeed a truly malicious or highly suspicious event versus what may be simply resharing of network equipment between operators within the same group, between operators in neighboring countries, and between operators which may have agreements in place. This shows the value in intelligence in applying these types of rules and techniques against SS7 traffic, and to not simply take hard and fast rules determining what is an allowed transaction and what is an allowed packet and what is not. Now that we know the scale of misuse of SS7 around the world and we know the value of intelligence, we need to look at ways in which we can restore trust in the mobile network. We need to get to a stage where we can safely say that the SS7 network is secure and functioning as designed. In restoring trust into the mobile network, and the core network especially, it is important to realize, as many of us do, that there is no short-term answer. The SS7 networks have been in place around the world for several decades and will probably remain in place for at least the next 20 years. Billions of dollars have been invested in them and they cannot be replaced overnight. What needs to happen is a solution to detect and stop threats which may occur over the SS7 network, which seamlessly fits onto the existing platforms and systems within the mobile network. Operators have to be seen to be taking steps to protect network data and privacy for reasons discussed before. Unless they do take these steps, there will be perception that they are not being addressed, and others will take steps to make sure that their security is being put into place. Subscribers will migrate to use other services which they believe is more secure, and regulators may be motivated to start to question what an operator is doing to protect its subscribers' privacy. As well as this, operators will be left at risk of more losses in revenue due to unexplained and unprotected fraud threats. We believe in Adaptive Mobile that dealing with the threats over the SS7 network can be done in three ways. The first, operators need to consider ways to firewall themselves from suspicious and malicious traffic both coming in and indeed going out of their mobile network, to detect these threats and indeed block them when they arise, to not simply rely on monitoring of these, but also to react when they actually occur and block them as they occur. Second, they need to be fully aware what is actually happening and what is traversing in and out of their network via advanced reporting. They need to know when suspicious packets are coming through or leaving and what type of packets these are and what potential impact they could have. Third, they also need to apply intelligence. As discussed previously, one cannot simply apply hard and fast rules in all cases. In many cases, an analysis component will be required to determine, is this threat truly one you wish to block on, or is it not a threat and simply a benign occurrence? At the same time, operators will need to react and move to make changes to any of the adversaries misusing the SS7 network. There is no point having a solution in place which is hard set to only block certain types of threats if an adversary can simply change their packet types or protocols that they use to bypass any defenses that the operator has in place. As a result, the operator needs to put in place systems to help detect and make assumptions and judgments on what types of evolutions of the SS7 attacks have been seen. For SS7 security and mobile security in general, there needs to be an application of two different factors to truly achieve an excellent security response. One is expertise and knowledge, and second is a global platform and a global footprint in order to respond to threats as and when they do actually occur. Within Adaptive Mobile, currently these factors are being fulfilled by the Threat Intelligence Service. Within this organization, we work to identify, detect and mitigate threats when they arise, and the same principle is used for SS7 attacks as they are detected. Using this setup and this system, Adaptive Mobile are able to react on any types of SS7 attacks when they are first encountered, and in doing so can ensure that these attacks are prevented again in the future. The intelligence that we've talked about allows us to focus on security, and this is something that every operator and every carrier around the world should be doing to address threats over the SS7 network. And it's not only the SS7 network that needs to be considered. In the future, more and more networks will move to signaling over diameter, and in this case as well, many of the same assumptions may also come into place, so operators also need to consider security in those points. It's a decision that many operators need to make to put in place systems to detect and block suspicious and malicious SS7 traffic if it is detected and seen. To do this, they need to justify it to themselves and to their subscribers and to regulators. However, one key justification should be the need to provide privacy and, as well as this, to also protect their own brand. For example, if an operator is seen to not be reacting on this and other operators in the same country are, then this can negatively impact its brand. At the same time, usage of that operator may also decline if it is seen as being insecure. It's important to realize that the SS7 network has been around for a long time and is going to be around for several years to come. It cannot be changed overnight, and one simply does not switch on the idea of SS7 security. However, it needs to come into place, and carriers need to put in protection to address the threats which are there. These threats have been seen in every operator during the course of research, not only in the 4 examples shown in the different continents, but in every other operator which we have also worked with. The threat is real and is not going away anytime soon. To deal with it and to prevent the threat getting any larger, carriers need to put in place steps and to take decisions which will make sure that their subscribers are protected both now and in the future. This is the end of the presentation, and thank you very much for everybody for listening. I'm going to open the floor now to questions, so if any questions, please send them on, and I'll do my best to respond. If there are any other additional questions or comments, please contact us at Adaptive Mobile, and we will respond offline. Thank you very much.
Carl, thanks very much indeed for that presentation. I'm sure everyone found that extremely fascinating. And with that, I will now be bringing in the Q&A session, as we previously mentioned. So this is your opportunity to pitch any questions that you might have for Carl and the guys at Adaptive Mobile. Should you have any questions at all, please use the comments box that you can see on the side of the screen. Messages will go directly to Carl and the responses will appear as text. So it just remains for me to thank Carl and Adaptive Mobile for making today's telecoms.com intelligence webinar possible, and to thank everyone who tuned in for today's session. Please do look out for upcoming webinars on telecoms.com addressing some of the most important topics in the industry. That's all for now.